Have you ever witnessed industrial situations on the verge of catastrophe, when life literally hung by a thread? Someone's fatal mistakes really can lead to irreversible large-scale consequences. Today, on the channel Techno, we are watching exactly such moments, captured on camera. A free beer shower does not have a refreshing effect. The taste will probably have a bitter note. This happened in Yakutia. The walls of the tank did not withstand the excessive pressure. This happens. Sometimes even empty reservoirs begin to warp. But here we are dealing with a full tank of fuel oil. And then the entire column suddenly shot high into the air. The vehicle stopped just in time to capture a breathtaking moment at the railway crossing. It turns out that tank cars can also slip on the rails. Look closely, perhaps you will understand what made the tank cars come off the rails. But my advice to you is this: do not give in to curiosity. It is better to read what is written there and run, because ethanol ignites much more easily than you think. This looks like a scene from an action movie. A truck gets stuck on the tracks, and the consequences unfold right before our eyes. It is astonishing that the driver managed to evacuate in time, as if he had a premonition of what was about to happen. Look, the runway is already short, and the pilot is landing on its last quarter. There is clearly not enough distance for normal braking, and he makes a desperate attempt to abort the landing. Let us say that by some miracle the aircraft did not flip over, but the passengers had time to think about many things during this landing. The aircraft behaved like a snowmobile and began to slide uncontrollably, pushing its way through the baggage carts. The brakes on the aircraft failed, and it crashed directly into the hangar and then immediately caught fire, just like in an action movie. No one was injured. Let us look at a collapse that could have cost up to 100 million euros. Incredibly, it all began with one tiny weak point in the lifting system. This incident serves as a reminder that even modern energy-saving systems can face the challenge of nature. A wind turbine in Texas took a lightning strike. A spark appeared on the blade and spread to the tower. The winds on the border of the states of Colorado and Wyoming turned out to be so strong that they tossed a huge container truck on the highway like a cardboard box. Everything was under control until the cable snapped, and the huge machine shattered into pieces. Once again, the weak link is in the game. Do you think it is easy to pull a truck loaded with logs out of the mud? The cable snapped, and everything had to start again from the beginning. The reverse trajectory kept everyone in suspense until the very last second, but thank goodness, it repeated the original position. Again the cable breaks, and everything flies apart in different directions. It seems that the collapse happens by itself. Let us try to guess whether it was a worn cable that could not withstand the load and brought everything down, or whether something else is happening here that is not yet obvious. It seemed that everything was going smoothly until the connection on the sling suddenly broke. Lifting pistons sometimes burst, but this can be completely avoided if one follows the technical instructions and replaces the parts in time. The driver had no opportunity to call for help, so he had to drive back to the workshop. More than 10 kilometers of travel on a grader with a flat tire. Let us say it was not the most comfortable trip. Next time, the driver will probably not underestimate the power of an unsecured hose. The driver had just stepped out, and the truck silently began to move. It was an unexpected solo performance. Fortunately, the escape did not cause serious damage to anyone except the truck itself. The attempt to sneak quickly behind a truck through a toll booth may have seemed clever, but for some reason, its 3 tires decided to explode right there. The road tanker got stuck on an uphill slope. The engine could not cope, and the incline was still steep. Then the assistant went to place wheel chocks on the road, and at that very moment, the truck suddenly rolled backwards, lost control, and flipped over several times. Even a short delay can create a serious danger on such terrain. Before overturning, the bulldozer gave the driver enough time to get out safely. The driver ignores the warning signs and drives under the bridge at full speed. As a result, he received a scratched van and an expensive lesson for the future. When you forget that you are driving a very tall container truck whose body is much higher than the cab, and you simply believe that it will somehow squeeze under a 3-meter bridge, you will end up in a trap. The same thing happens when instead of cargo, you have a crane. The driver showed incredible reaction. Otherwise, he would have rolled down and fallen together with the vehicle. Lowering a loader into a deep pit is not an easy task. That is why crane operators often keep the cab door open so that at any second they can quickly leave it. Excessive load pressure combined with an incorrect turning angle leads to the failure of the crane, turning the clearing work into even greater chaos. The crane was lifting the load almost vertically. Was there a critical mistake in his actions when the pressure doubles the weight? Even a single wrong micro movement can cause the entire project to collapse. The giant crane structure begins to fold up and pulls its neighbors along with it. No one expected that a short loss of balance would bring the crane down directly onto the road. Because of the incident, an endless traffic jam stretched along it. It only seems to the eyes of witnesses that everything is happening in slow motion. In reality, for the participants in these events in the Netherlands, everything happened as fast as a whirlwind. 2 cranes were doing their best to hold a massive concrete block, but the fragile balance did not last long. Suddenly, everything collapsed one after another, turning the embankment into a pile of debris. Another 2 cranes performed the same dangerous trick with overweight and overturning, this time synchronously. It does not matter how much of a hurry you are in, before you open the door, check what is behind it. Now it is obvious to everyone that these gates are far too narrow for a vehicle of that size, but there is no turning back. The driver thought he had almost finished his shift, and for some reason, the blue bin decided to end his career. Why do you think trash containers are so vindictive? Fireworks are meant to light up the sky during celebrations, but this time they turned their own house into a raging inferno. The incident began at a fireworks warehouse in California, and the flames quickly spread to nearby commercial buildings. Everything was going as on an ordinary day until sparks suddenly flew out of the molten steel and spilled further outside. Fortunately, no one turned out to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And here is an apocalypse that the residents of this neighborhood will remember forever. A security camera captured the moment when a sewage vacuum truck, after successfully cleaning someone's sewer, crashed directly into a house, smashing several motorcycles parked on the sidewalk. It is hard to imagine how long it will take to clean up and forget this nightmare. At the ceremonial parade, no one expected that the tank T-34 would leave the stage so dramatically, overturning at the very moment of display. It seems that the street received a free air conditioner. It is a pity that it landed not exactly where it was supposed to. The way they were loading the helicopter onto the ship made many people worry about the level of safety. It is hard to feel comfortable knowing that there might be nobody in the cockpit at the moment when it is time to press the brake. What seemed like a routine training flight suddenly turned into a helicopter catastrophe when it sharply tilted and fell to the right with the engine still running. It is hard to believe that both pilots managed to evacuate safely, but the helicopter will clearly need a long repair. It looks like a scene from a science fiction movie, but in reality, it is just the assembly of metal blanks on a conveyor. At the metallurgical plant, everything went wrong when a ladle with molten metal was being lifted above the furnace. At the very moment when the crane stopped, a vehicle drove by. How timely it was that it passed that spot, because a few seconds later, the crane failed, and we then see molten metal pouring onto the floor, turning the plant into hell. Flammable. If that is what is written, it means that in just a few seconds, everything can turn from risky into very bad. Steam may seem harmless, but it becomes extremely dangerous when it encounters high temperatures in a furnace. That is why it is extremely important to dry scrap metal thoroughly before using it, so that this does not happen. It seemed to be an ordinary loading operation, but once again, moisture in the scrap metal triggered a chain reaction similar to pouring oil on a fire. In the middle of a steel plant, something went wrong. Workers scatter in all directions, and no one wants to deal with splashes of molten steel at 1,000 degrees that burst out of the centrifugal casting machine. It seems that this rocket decided to cancel the flight only a few seconds after launch because of a faulty engine and completely veered off course. Would it be fair to call this a case of self-sabotage? Just look at these efforts. It is frustrating when the equipment fails and complicated work cannot be finished. The rock seems lighter than the loader, but it looks like the swing was too strong, or we underestimated the power of this boulder. Probably a small hidden defect in the lifting system led the entire operation to complete failure. Let us dive into chaos. A calm environment develops into a collapse in a second. Literally, just one weak link in the chain. and an expensive machine turns into a pile of scrap metal. A few seconds before the incident, it is astonishing how precisely all the participants took their positions on the stage. The pole falls from the impact of a truck whose driver is not looking in the rearview mirror. The car on the other side takes the full weight. But fortunately, at that moment, there was no one inside. Those 10 seconds when the dump truck lost control could have become a domino effect for the entire construction site. But the steel arm and the quick reaction of the excavator operator saved the entire work site from complete destruction. The excavator tilted, and in the same second turned into a bulldozer, pushing the truck that had brought it onto a house. The driver certainly did not expect a double surprise that day. Everything goes as usual, but after a couple of seconds, there is nothing you can change. You can only wait for the end. A steep angle and a slippery road are enough to roll down tumbling. Notice that working with heavy machinery is not like driving a passenger car. The excavator has a complex design, so a shift in weight toward a precipice can play a cruel joke on it. What was supposed to be a routine demolition led to an incident. Because of the excavator's incorrect position, the entire concrete block collapsed. It is good that the operator inside the cab remained safe and sound. The vengeful tower decided that its last mission would be to collapse onto the one who was demolishing it. This is what happens when more time is spent on finding a good filming angle than on the demolition process itself. Not even 10 seconds had passed from the beginning of the launch of the new vessel into the water before the observers' smiles faded, because the situation suddenly started to follow the worst scenario. A single breaking wave was enough to overturn a boat loaded with bricks. That is why proper loading is not just a recommendation, but a necessity. A textbook example of how a crane collapse often happens because of overloading or exceeding the safe operating range. Although the operator had a warning system that announced only 75% of the safety of the maneuver, he ignored the signals and decided to continue. No one was injured. No one expected this official ceremony to end in an awkward mishap. The ship of the Navy of the United States of America, the destroyer Cleveland, awkwardly went down into the water and capsized, but did not sink. We are watching the moment when a huge crane in a port collapses after a direct hit. This is something rarely seen in the transport industry. The point is that the cargo ship was unable to stop in time and crashed into the steel support like a giant arrow. We were talking about testing equipment, and what if it does not pass the test at the initial levels? As soon as the lifting capacity passed the equilibrium point, gravity pulled the crane down, and it collapsed right in the middle of the test. While lifting the container, the crane suddenly lost its balance and fell onto the cargo ship, which had taken on board 600 liters of diesel fuel. Fortunately, the crew managed to get ashore in time. However, a dark oil spot spread over the waters of the Galapagos Islands for a long time. The bridge ahead clearly was not a drawbridge, and the cargo ship made a fatal mistake. Fortunately, the warning signal sounded in time, which helped to prevent a far worse outcome. An incident in British Columbia. A large vessel turned at the wrong moment, causing a smaller tugboat to capsize in rapids with a powerful current. Only thanks to the quick reaction of the crew did everyone on board manage to escape in time before the tug sank. An incident in Ecuador, an unusually high water level, pressed a ship against the main support of the central bridge in the city of Guayaquil. A strong impact broke part of the bridge, which disrupted traffic in this area. A storm in the Java Sea turned out to be a major thief that swept all the heavy equipment from the ship's deck. At least the crew of 13 people managed to escape safely. That very case when people say, hung on by a miracle. In fact, nobody could have imagined that a portal to the underworld would open right under the vehicle. Having driven just 10 meters from the start of the event, the tractor suddenly split in half and began to smoke in front of the amazed audience. Sometimes car shows do not follow the script. This incident is a vivid reminder of why one should check equipment before each outing. The raft leaned just a little, but that was enough for the tractor to dive into the water. And even on the second attempt, it was not possible to maintain balance. Dump truck. The name speaks for itself. Sometimes it is not about the load, but about the vehicle itself. Just as a lizard sheds its tail, the trailer detached from the truck after driving over a speed bump. This definitely slowed down its plans for the day, I would even say, left them far behind. Quick reflexes saved the driver of the white truck from a serious collision when the trailer of the vehicle in front suddenly detached and rushed straight at him. These were serious efforts in loading, but unfortunately, the results did not quite meet expectations. As the saying goes, the best is the enemy of the good. Someone was too greedy. Someone will certainly want to investigate what caused this accident. Was it a miscalculation of the loader's capabilities or errors in operation? Write to us in the comments what you think about the incidents you saw today, and also give us likes and subscribe. Thank you for watching. And make sure to watch our previous episodes as well. They are also very useful and incredibly interesting.